Hi, everyone. This is Mrs. Jane. I'm doing a read aloud of The River Between Us by Richard Beck. We're on Chapter 7, page 74. Delphine always made time for her trips down to Front Street to take the air, as she said. She'd come to terms with the Rogers store since that was all we had to offer, and gave it a light browsing most afternoons. Like Calinda, she became a landmark. Grand Tower had never seen anything like either of these beings, though as it turned out, Delphine stirred them more. Once she reached flat ground, she moved like a wondrous grace under a parcel hanging in the points of lacework. The word went around that she never wore the same bonnet twice. This brought every woman in town to the window to see her passing by. She had, in fact, 5 or 6 bonnets, including the new straw ones, but she trimmed them throughout the evenings from a bottomless supply of artificial flowers and fruits, Grosgain rosettes, glittering buckles, and feathers Calinda brought from the timber. Front Street was a loblolly down by the landing, and so Delphine had to gather her skirts to keep them clear of the mud. This brought every loafer in Jackson County to the porch of T.W. Jenkins' store, hoping to catch a glimpse of her ankles. Until the last showboat played Grand Tower that summer, Delphine was the greatest draw in this part of the state, and this sesh gal strolled in town that was snapping with the stars and stripes of Union flags. She hadn't been gone long when I noticed the nod of the woman that down in the distance one afternoon. They were starting up our hill. Cass and Galinda had taken a dip net down to the river, so I was the only one who saw. I was beating the braided rugs over the porch railing. I'd heard somewheres of ladies with no more to do than to call on one another in the afternoons. That didn't sound much like Grand Tower, and the climb alone would have discouraged them from us. Still, a bunch came looking for more pathway than they could find. Darting inside, I told Mamma. She didn't seem surprised in her face, but she grabbed her head to smooth out her hair and sent for me to get her shoes. She'd cast off her apron for a fresh one by the time I got back. She was still cramming her bare feet into the shoes when we heard them on the porch. One of them was Mrs. T.W. Jenkins, another was Mrs. Manfred Caddy, and Mrs. R.M. Breeze, the preacher's wife. They looked like 3 of Cass's hens, all feathered out and suffering in this heat. They were sucking air to catch their breath. Mamma pretended surprised to see them, as if she'd spent a summer day in her shoes and a fresh apron. Mrs. Pruitt, Mrs. Manfred Caddy said, it is hot weather and a hard climb, and we're all busy women preparing for war. She fetched up a shuddering breath, and Mamma said calmly, I am up for the day myself. We won't take more than a moment of your time, Mrs. Jenkins said, and in they came, looking around as they'd never set foot here before. Mamma could have shown them in the front room for a breath of air from the river. She gestured them into chairs around the table. The kitchen hung in a foreign scent of Calinda's pain pate, a New Orleans gingerbread baking in the Dutch oven. The whole kitchen was an oven. Mrs. Breeze sighed. Mrs. Pruitt, we all understand that life has not been an easy row for you to hoe, said Mrs. Caddy. Mamma's hands were folded before her. I haven't asked for charity in this town. Her gaze brushed Mrs. Breeze. What good would it do me? Nobody mentioned charity, Mrs. Caddy went on, and it's nobody's business but your own who you let out onto your rooms to whoever you take under your roof. Mamma clearly saw eye to eye with her on that. But the tide has turned, Mrs. Pruitt, said Mrs. Caddy. Now our watchword must be united we stand, divided we fall. I will put it plain. We are at war, in case you haven't heard, and you've got enemy aliens in your house. We come in good faith to let you know that you're on thin ice. And you've given them succor, Mrs. Breeze chimed. Mamma's hands clenched her apron, but she spoke mildly. Well, I don't see how I can send them home. The boats isn't running. She glanced at the preacher's wife. We weren't church-goers. For one thing, we never had the clothes. Mrs. Breeze had been agog since she got here to see how heathens lived. Shall I send them down to the preacher for shelter? Mamma inquired. Mrs. Breeze bristled. I wouldn't have them in my parsonage overnight, she said, about to spit. I wouldn't give them the loft space in the barn, nor the straw from the stable. We're true blue Americans here, and the whole community knows what they are. Mamma's eyes narrowed. What are they? Why, spies, of course, Mrs. Caddy rang out. One of them's eternally out in the timber, surveying the territory for an invasion, they say, and the white one's down all over town getting the lay of the land. She's down there right now. Spies, Mamma pondered. Then they come to the wrong town, didn't they? If we had a secret, the 3 of you would tell it. The bonnets quivered and drew closer. They hadn't made this climb to be insulted. And another thing, Mrs. T.W. Jenkins piped up. It's enough to gag a maggot to see that overdressed little miss, that Delphine, whoever, putting herself on public display. She's switching her skirt tails up and down Front Street, even as we speak. And the men in this town is staring holes in her, the brazen little hussy. Mamma stroked her cheek. She's a big city gal, Mamma said at last. She don't know how restless small town men can get. They say the porch on your husband's store is about to collapse under the weight of the men watching Delphine go by. I can see how it might be a worry to you. Mrs. Jenkins jumped on that. If you insinuate my husband has any interest in that painted up little floozy, I only have this answer to you, Mrs. Pruitt. I've held on to my husband, unlike some I could name. The kitchen went dead. You could hear the buzz of a horsefly circling. Then Mamma said, "Get out of my house." They'd never been ordered out of anywhere. They bumbled and bumped into one another. Mrs. Caddy gave Mrs. Jenkins a look that, like maybe she'd gone too far. They were at the door when the preacher's wife turned back. "Mrs. Pruitt," she said, speaking low, "as one mother to another, I will have to say my piece. It don't look good having a son that age of your boy under the same roof with the young woman we don't know nothing about, spies or otherwise. It just don't look right." I was next to Mamma, standing with her. "I don't reckon my son will be under my roof much longer," Mamma said. "You have a son, don't you? Will he be going to war?" "My son, Bertram?" Mrs. Bree started. "My land, no. He won't be going to war. He's why, no, he won't be going." Then they were gone. Mamma leaned against the door jamb where we lingered in the air. She smoothed her apron and thought of taking it off to spare it. Then at length she spoke, softly. "I work hard not to draw their fire, and to keep us decent and together. I live and let live. I don't even go down to town if I can send one of you. But it don't signify. They can't let you be. One day they come after you." That was a long speech for Mamma. Now in the quiet I was thinking about Pa, and wondered if she was too, but we rarely spoke of him, and I didn't now. "What'll happen next, Mamma?" She stroked her chin. "Well, they wouldn't dare run Delphine out of town. It wouldn't look good on their menfolk, and I have an idea that they've got it out of their systems." "Mamma, do you wish Delphine and Calinda would never come? Would it have just been easier for us if we like we was?" She looked over at me in surprise. I was as tall as she was now. "No, I'm not sorry they come. You can't believe but every other word Delphine says. And if vanity's a sin, she'll fry. But before she got here, I wouldn't have answered back to them battle axes. That Delphine don't lack confidence in herself. I'll give her that. And I believe a little has worn off on me. She put some starch in my spine." I hadn't thought of such a thing. I didn't know grown people changed or were changed. I thought being grown was safer than that. "Delphine's wearing off on you, too," Mama told me, "just like Calinda's wearing off on Cass." "Delphine? On me?" "It's in your walk a little, and you're a little tidier about your hair. You don't look so much like you was dragged backwards through a brush fence." "Many thanks, Mama," I said. "But not the corsets, never them." "Well, no," Mama said, "there's limits." Then, not 2 minutes after our recent callers had vanished from view, there come Delphine toiling up toward us. Climbing the backbone was the biggest job of her day. Her summer dress was made of ticking, a fine black line against white. She had it in handfuls, climbing over rill and ridge. She labored along as she could to feel every stone through her thin slipper soles. The silken morning glories on her bonnet looked to be working a loose. Fine, her face was beet red and steaming in the heat, and her curls hung lank. She was using the parcel as a walking stick. It was a far cry from strolling on the pavements in New Orleans, but she kept true to her ways. I glanced at Mamma. She was stifling a smile at the sight of all this elegance melting away, and it took something to coax a smile out of Mamma. Delphine fetched up the bottom of the porch stairs, breathing so heavy you'd think she'd been pulling stumps. "Nom de Dieu!" she gasped, and several other French words. Planting the parcel on the ground, she plunged a gloved hand into her reticule. Yes, gloves in this weather, little string ones with her bare fingers sticking out. She pulled up a handful and shook it at us. "A showboat! It come down from somewhere called Muscatine, Iowa. But of course the musicians are from New Orleans. Where else? The Ethiopian meddlers, and the drama, and the E.P. Christy minstrels, and the public is invited to dance upon the stage at the conclusion of the program," she quoted. "A showboat, and the last before they're taken off the river." Delphine was almost beside herself. Mamma and I saw then how dull her life had been all this time she was making ours so lively. So, of course, when the showboat played Grand Tower, we'd go, Mama too. Our visitors that afternoon had something to do with it. Then Noah dispelled all doubt in the matter. He came home from work that night, lips white with anger. Being Noah, he'd have said nothing, though I heard him kick at the porch stairs before I saw him. My spine was starchier than before, too, so I trailed him into his room. Then I demanded to know what particular burr had gotten under his saddle. He didn't want to tell. Then he did. They run their mouths down there around the forge, he said, disgusted with humanity. They talk to hear their heads rattle. I'd like to shorten their ears, about 6 of them, maybe more. What for? They say we're sending signals to the south from the lights out of our windows. Who? Us, he snapped. Say that we're signaling the Confederate Navy out of this house. It's what the lamps are for. He was wrought up for certain. This is talk against Delphine, I said. They mean Delphine spying. Of course, that's what they meant. Like there was any sense to it. Men gossip worse than women, and they don't even know it. Noah was hopping mad, and as if trying to court a girl under his own roof didn't give him fits enough. For one thing, he wouldn't know enough to how sweet he was on Delphine. For another, there was always witnesses to every little thing. The wonder is Noah didn't flee the house of women sooner than he did. I let him rant and use some language I won't repeat here. It wasn't like him. But we'd be going to the showboat show. No question about that. We'd pull the money out of the well for the tickets, and we'd all sit in the front row like anybody else. Maybe more so.